Right. So Julian Assange, the extradition hearing wrapped up for the time being on Thursday. Right. It actually ended a day early. It was supposed to end on Friday. Well, it's supposed to take longer than 4 weeks regardless. And the judge wanted to get through all the witnesses as fast as possible because all of the witnesses are testifying in Assange's favor. And she doesn't like that. Right. So we had to get them out as written statements as fast as possible. And this included Noam Chomsky even. And this included two anonymous witnesses from UC Global who spied on Assange, who spied on the Ecuadorian embassy. Explosive testimony. But of course, we had to rush through it. Right. And the 2 days later on Saturday, there was a vigil for Assange in Piccadilly Circus in London, right? So I went there with the activists. Once again, I want to give a huge shout out to all these activists because they've been so brilliant. They are really the backbone of this movement. You know, when all of the press, even independent media, they're turning a blind eye, they're burying their heads in the sand. They're not. When the whole world is going about as if they're not implicated or concerned by this, as if they don't care. These activists are putting in the work. They're there every day. They're queuing up at 5 a.m. just to get me in and get Craig in and get other journalists and observers in from Reporters Without Borders, from other NGOs, so we could watch the trial and report. So huge shout out to them. They really, I can't thank them enough. And, Jamie, Nyla, everyone, they've been great. And they put in so much work queuing up for us and then staying outside, banging away with the instruments, chanting. And you know what I realized? I mean, this won't come as a shock to you, but I think one of the reasons that the hearing took place on the 6th floor, right at the back of the hallway. So I was in court 11, which is adjacent to court 10. So there's literally a wall between us and Assange. That's it. And I think the reason that the hearing took place on the 6th floor and at the back of the hallway, so you couldn't hear the noise outside. Because if you look back at the extradition hearing when it was taking place in February, this was in Woolwich, right? So Belmarsh prison, and you had busloads of people coming in from France, Germany, and they were making a racket. You could hear it inside the courtroom. It was really, really annoying, which is getting the job done. So I think to subvert that, they put the hearing right at the top, right at the far end of the courthouse, so you can hear it. Even though, keep in mind, the courthouse is virtually empty, right? With COVID, there's not much taking place there. There are some cases, but you could have easily put it on another floor. They didn't. So, so Saturday there was a vigil, and I went there to film, and this is a Piccadilly Circus, so I posted some of these on Twitter. You might have seen. Well, I'm trying to get these videos out for you. Right. So all of a sudden, we're standing around and the cops start flooding in. Yeah. You had 2 over there and 2 over here. And then all of a sudden, 10 cops are there. And then all of a sudden, one of them is holding a camera, filming us. Take a look. I posted surveillance state in plain sight. Just literally standing there with a monopod and filming us. In the middle of the city. Like, they don't even bother hiding it anymore. It's just like mass surveillance in your face. As a way to intimidate people. Just obscene. And, then they start milling in. And look, you had 40, 50 cops at the end. For a protest where there's like 20 people. There's like 20 people. Even Craig Murray, the ambassador, showed up, right? And it was great. It was great. So I'm trying to find the footage that I posted of it. I posted a lot of videos. So if you're not following on Twitter, by all means, go and follow, and you will find a plethora of nice pictures and clips and coverage from this vigil, which was in central London. So let me just pull this up over here for you. I'll tell you about Belmarsh in a second, right? So, yeah, here we go. Right. So you can see this is a pretty calm protest. Ain't nobody being violent. By the way, shout out for the Palestinian flag. But this is a calm protest. You don't need 40 cops to come and deal with this. This is absurd. Like, you got more important things to do in a city of 10 million. So look at that, man. I filmed all of them. Now, I didn't count how many there are. I lost count. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's just the first frame.
The lady who just walked up.
Free! Free! Julian Assange! Free! Free! Julian Assange! The man at the protest here today is supporting Vigil.
I think that's quite excessive to say the least. And then it didn't stop there. They also started bothering Eric. Eric is really a sweet, gentle man. He's 92 years old. And they started bothering him as well. You see this cops trying to like talk him into leaving, and he just wouldn't leave, which was awesome.
These are being turned upon the people. We need freedom of speech. We need unity. We need community to survive. It's going to be difficult times ahead, folks. We're going to need people to pull together because the police are being used against the people they're supposed to be protecting. That's you and me, tax-paying legal citizens of this country. These are being turned upon.
Yeah, so he's just shaking his head. He's like, no, I'm not going. He's great. Eric is great. Here's a picture that I snapped. I don't know if you can see the full frame. I'm going to zoom out. Yeah. Very artsy, right? Very artsy. Yeah, so they broke up the protest, and then they followed us for like 10 blocks. I'm not kidding. They followed us from Piccadilly Circus all the way into Soho. Just, what are you doing, you know? And, you know, I asked them, am I allowed to film? You're going to give me, I was trying to ascertain whether they're going to give me shit or not. And they said, no, there's no problem. You're in a public place. You can film. It's good, great. And I just stuck it in the face of the guy who was filming us. You know, and they tried saying that, oh, you need a risk assessment, etc. And we tried to explain to them, well, the activists tried to explain to them that there's no one organizing this, right? So they were saying, oh, whoever organizes this needs to fill in or establish a risk assessment. It's just, there's no ringleader, whoever you're looking for, okay? It doesn't exist. And anyway, they chased everyone away, and they started bothering, you know, every person individually. Like you saw, they're going after Eric. There's one friend of mine, you had 4 cops towering over her. I mean, just ridiculous, really. You know, you might think that, okay, they're being kind about it. They don't have guns, which is a plus. But yeah, it's still intimidation. Even though they're being kind about it, they're shutting us up. You don't need a permit. You don't need any kind of permission to hand out flyers or to protest. You just show up. So what happened to democracy? What happened to free speech? You know, we can't get into the court. No, okay, let's go from the beginning. We can't do journalism, right? We publish war crimes. Oh, you go to Belmarsh prison. You're going to be extradited 175 years. Okay. Can we watch the extradition hearing? Nope. 40 NGOs, journalists, etc. Access revoked on day of the hearing. That's it. Tough luck. No explanation why. You're not getting in. You're not going to have any trial observers or human rights organizations or NGOs observing the trial. Nope. Can I get in the press annex? I have a journalist card. Nope. You need this one. And then you're still not guaranteed to get on the list. Okay, can I get in the press gallery? Can I get in the public gallery? Yeah, if you come queue at 5 a.m. There's 5 spots. And then, of course, those VIP seats, which the judge reserved, were for members of the Australian Council, and they didn't show up. Of course, this was, again, to block observers from NGOs from seeing this sham trial. Okay, can we protest this sham trial? Can we protest what's going on? Nope. You need a risk assessment, and we're going to film you and follow you home. I mean, this is ludicrous. You know, if you're worried about a police state, well, here it is. You know, you want to talk about other countries being authoritarian? What is this? What, they put a smile on and that makes it better? No, it doesn't. No freedom of press, no right to protest, can't even watch a public hearing in a public court, no open justice, being intimidated with cameras, being intimidated with dozens of police, literally. And they even arrested someone, by the way. They arrested one of the activists. And he was not as old as Eric, but an elderly gentleman. And they threw him in. He came out laughing afterwards, but still, he had to pay a fine and everything. So this is absurd. This is absurd. Wouldn't even leave Eric alone, man. Come on. That guy's really sweet. I talked to him. He's awesome. So yeah, the day after, I went to Belmarsh prison, right? I went to where Julian is being held. And keep in mind, this is a category A, maximum security prison. Once again, this is where they keep terrorists, right? This is where they keep the worst of the worst. So it tells you a lot when a journalist is being locked up there. And remember, it was for jumping bail. There was no indictment at the time. There was no extradition request at the time. So the only crime that he had committed, the only crime that Assange had committed when they dragged him out of the embassy was jumping bail. He didn't commit any other crimes in the UK. And they sent him to Belmarsh prison. So, I mean, if you jumped bail, do you think they would send you to Guantanamo Bay? Do you think that they would send you to ADX Florence or Alexandria Detention Center or MCC? Do you think that's suitable? Of course not. It's political. That's what it is. And so that's why they sent him there, right? They sent him with the worst of the worst. And I went there, and it's extremely harrowing. I mean, you have... this thing is like... it's an hour by train from central London, right? Plumstead, and then you got to walk a bit to get there, and it's just these huge walls. It's really like the Black Gate of Mordor, you know? And you can't even see anything. The complex is so huge. It's ridiculous. And I think, again, the capacity, I think, is 910 prisoners at the moment. Anyway, so, I started filming out there, and I just wanted to talk about... I wanted to show solidarity and talk about what Assange is going through, because you have to keep in mind that although we're very worried, and everyone should be worried about him being extradited to the U.S., where he'll be placed under SAMs, which are even worse, it doesn't mean that his conditions in Belmarsh are acceptable. They're also extremely horrible, okay? He's being held in solitary confinement, can't leave his cell for 23 hours a day, no exercise, and this is compounded on top of the 7 years that he spent in the Ecuadorian embassy. I mean, this is almost a decade of arbitrary detention, right? And he's already served his sentence for bail. He's already served his sentence for having seconded bail. He's being held now just so the U.S. can make an example out of him. And again, I point your attention to the fact he was held on an old indictment, an outdated indictment, just being held illegally in the prison. So, the conditions in Belmarsh prison are horrible. And we heard testimony from medical experts during the court proceedings that even if Assange stays in the UK, there's still a risk he could commit suicide because the conditions are so harsh. And you've had 3 prisoners that have died in Belmarsh during the last year alone, right? And not every one of them has been investigated. So, I mean, the fact that he has breathing problems, that there's COVID, that, he's being denied basic privileges that other prisoners are given, the fact that, he's suffering from depression, understandably so, being locked up like that, and he's not being given proper care. We established Koppelman. Dr. Koppelman was one of the top neuropsychiatrists in the country, and who's taking care of Assange, told the court that, you can't trust these prison reports because he's not going to confide in the prison shrink. Dali is her name, I think. And Dr. Dali. And so, he is suffering. And it doesn't say that in the prison reports because he's scared of you throwing him in solitary or rather further restrictive conditions and imposing harsher measures on him. So he's not confiding in you, obviously, and that's a common thing among prisoners, as Dr. Crosby also ascertained, an American doctor who's examined Guantanamo Bay detainees. So, I mean, you have some of the top doctors on the face of this rock, on the face of this planet, telling you this man is in dire need of medical attention. His conditions are inhumane. This is not sustainable. And nonetheless, they're keeping him there, right? So Belmarsh prison is really a horrible place. And again, as I said in front of the prison, and I've told you this many times, I find it absolutely bizarre that you have a Jordanian terrorist who's connected to the 9/11 hijackers. He gets to go out on house arrest. And this costs the UK taxpayers £500,000 a week just to keep him under surveillance. And then they ended up retracting it, withdrawing it, and throwing him back into Belmarsh. But then they drew up a special extradition treaty with Jordan just for him, so that when he gets to Jordan and he's tried for those 2 terror plots, they can't use any testimony obtained under torture. And so once he got to Jordan, he got off scot-free. I mean, the special treatment that a terrorist gets, house arrest, a new extradition treaty to make sure they're safe once they get to their destination. For a terrorist, a fucking terrorist who's connected to the 9/11 hijackers. But Julian Assange, a journalist, is treated worse than a terrorist. And they're talking about this in the court, about what conditions he's going to be placed under, these SAMs or administrative segregation in the US, as if that's commonplace or it's normal or acceptable for a journalist to be treated like a terrorist. Equating the two. I mean, this is absurd. This is obscene. So, I'm filming in front of the prison. I'm just talking about this, and also about what Stella Morris talked about, how, every morning when he was being sent to the Old Bailey, again, keep in mind, this is about an hour and a half by car, or rather this van, which is an upright coffin that they lock him in. Every morning before he gets in, they strip him naked. He's got to be x-rayed. He's handcuffed. This is dehumanizing. This is absolutely dehumanizing. And every day you have to do that. And then an hour and a half back, all the way from the Old Bailey, from City of London to Belmarsh. So you can imagine the kind of toll this is taking on him, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's awful. It's awful. This guy is a journalist. He published the truth. He exposed their war crimes. Doesn't deserve this treatment. You can't justify this under any circumstances. You just can't. Just can't. And I wanted to talk about that, and then one of the guards comes out and stops me. Says, I can't film. What do you mean I can't film? There's no signs that say you can't film. This is public property. And he starts to say it's prison property. Prisons don't own any property. What are you saying? He's being funny with me, right? And because the activists, they film there every Saturday. They live stream there. They have no problems whatsoever. I know this because they told me. And for the first time ever, I got in trouble, apparently, Now, you can say he was being nice about it. I don't think censoring journalists and telling them to stop talking about inhumane prison conditions bestowed upon other journalists is nice or kind. Okay, that's telling people to shut up and get away and not expose the truth. So that was absurd. That was absurd. Anyway, I just want to give you a little update on the vigil that we had on Saturday. And once again, huge shout out to all the activists, all the work they're putting in. It's just immeasurable. It's really paramount. It's the backbone of this movement. And, if they weren't doing it, there would be no one. The media would be silent, even independent media. There would be no one else outside. They're really the spine, the backbone of this movement. So huge shout out to them. And they this is not a one-time thing. They do this all the time, every week. And they were in front of the court every day, from dawn until the proceedings were over late in the afternoon. Yeah. So huge shout out to them. Major respect, really. And it's thanks to them I was able to get in when press are being openly barred from the press annex, right? And you have VIP seats being reserved for people who don't show up, and NGOs being shut out, and journalists being shut out, and human rights groups being shut out, and people carrying journalist cards being shut out until they don't have the right credentials, which is absurd. I heard one guy, Moritz, for example, he had a IFJ card, which should technically be worth more than anything because it's the International Federation of Journalists. So I don't see what supersedes that. And he didn't just have the IFJ card, he also had the NUJ card, the National Union of Journalists, which is a UK union. However, he had the Irish version, okay? So he doesn't have this hologram on it. So he didn't have the British version, he had the Irish version. And apparently that wasn't good enough. I was like, y'all just keep going with the discrimination, right? Unbelievable. It's the same union. It's just Irish and not British. It's the same union. It's the same union of journalists. It's a press card. He has 2 press cards. Why are you not letting him in? And then on the last goddamn day, they finally let him in, or approved him. And then, the press annex is full. You can't go in. This is what we're dealing with, man. This is what we're dealing with. And of course, keep in mind, during lunch breaks, the activists would come back and keep our spots while we're running around. Like I'm running past St. Paul's, I'm going to the co-op trying to get some food and run back so we don't lose our spots. So really, just huge respect for them, and I really thank them a lot for their work. And I want to thank you guys also for supporting the show. London is goddamn expensive, so thank you so much for supporting that and enabling me to actually go and report directly from the court and document what's happening here, because it really is the trial of the century. It really is an affront on press freedoms and freedom of speech. And, all these clowns that are ignoring this or did one video about it and just, went to talk about Ben Shapiro or Trump or Biden. I mean, that's beyond journalistic malpractice. They're shooting themselves in the foot, because after Assange, they're going to come for you, especially independent media, because the corporatists, they don't care. People who work at the BBC, people who work, at CNN and Fox, they don't do national security journalism. They don't talk against imperialism. So no matter what happens to Assange, they're safe. That's why they're not reporting on this. They're part of the establishment. They're arms of the national security blob. But independent journalists, you are going to get screwed. You know, you see AOC, for example, who's supposedly a leftist, allegedly, and she's calling for censorship. And you have all these people that are encouraging censorship, not thinking that, oh, if I stay silent or if I encourage this, it's going to come back to bite me. It's going to come back to bite all of us, right? So anyway, I want to thank you guys for supporting the show and helping me to report on this hearing. So once again, for those of you who missed it, please go watch the playlist. I did hours of coverage every single day. And in conclusion, the judge will be giving a decision on January 4th, at 10 a.m. at the Old Bailey. So I think personally that her... I don't think she was fair. Again, I've highlighted all those reasons before, and I do think the defense did brilliantly. I mean, they could not have found better witnesses to testify. They had explosive testimony from UC Global about the spying that went on at the Ecuadorian embassy. They had Noam Chomsky. They had Trevor Tim, Andy Worthington, Carrie Schenkman, Eric Lewis, Dr. Crosby, Dr. Koppelman. I mean, I can't even keep up, you know? Just the best of the best when it comes to human rights attorneys, when it comes to doctors, when it comes to just everyone in their respective field, just seasoned veterans, crème de la crème, you know, and they were really helpful and their expert testimony was vital. And they built a solid case. I don't think you could have built a more solid case. Now, it remains to be seen whether the judge is going to heed their calls to stop this extradition. We'll see. I don't know. I'm keeping my hopes up, but at the same time, I'm expecting, you know, I'm hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. That's the saying, right? So, you know, fingers crossed for Assange, right? There you go.